Let me tell you about Cadet Riley Morse, or as everyone at the Galactic Defense Academy called her, the Mute. Now, this wasn't because she had any actual speech impediment, mind you. No, Riley could talk just fine when she wanted to, which was approximately never during tactical exercises, combat simulations, or really any time an instructor was present. Commander Vega, a man whose ego was roughly the size of Jupiter's great red spot, had made Riley his favorite punching bag. Every morning during tactical review, he'd strut around the classroom like a peacock with a Napoleon complex, inevitably stopping at Riley's desk in the back corner. "Cadet Morse," he'd announce with theatrical flair, "perhaps you'd like to share your brilliant insights on yesterday's simulation disaster?" Riley would look up from her notes, shrug slightly, and return to her scribbling without so much as a grunt. The class would snicker, Commander Vega would turn red, and Lieutenant Torres would shake his head like a disappointed parent watching their child fail at basic motor functions. "This, cadets," Commander Vega would declare, gesturing dramatically at Riley, "is what happens when you mistake silence for wisdom." Morse here seems to think that tactical brilliance osmoses through her notepad. The other cadets ate it up. There was Cadet Brooks, who laughed so hard at these daily roastings that he once snorted protein shake through his nose. Cadet Williams would always chime in with helpful observations like, "Maybe she's saving her voice for something important, like ordering lunch." But here's the thing nobody seemed to notice, because they were all too busy patting themselves on the back for their comedic genius. Riley never failed a simulation. Ever. Metchen. While her classmates stumbled through tactical scenarios like drunk tourists trying to navigate a space station, Riley would quietly complete her objectives with the efficiency of a Swiss chronometer. During the infamous Battle of Proxima Centauri simulation, the one where half the class accidentally nuked their own fleet, but Riley had somehow managed to not only avoid friendly fire but also neutralize 3 enemy dreadnoughts using nothing but mining drones and creative thinking. Her solution was so elegantly simple that the computer initially flagged it as a glitch. Commander Vega's response? "Lucky accident, Morse. Even a broken hyperdrive gets you somewhere eventually." Lieutenant Torres, who had all the tactical awareness of a decorative plant, nodded sagely and added, "Probably just button-mashed her way through it." The really beautiful part was watching these two intellectual giants try to explain Riley's consistent success to the Academy's review board. According to their reports, Cadet Morse was minimally engaged, lacks communication skills, and demonstrates concerning antisocial tendencies. Meanwhile, her simulation scores looked like a mathematician's fever dream of perfection. But Riley just kept taking notes, her pen moving across the page with mechanical precision while chaos erupted around her. She recorded every mistake, every tactical blunder, every moment when an instructor's ego prevented them from seeing the obvious solution, staring them in the face. The other cadets had started placing bets on when Riley would finally crack and speak up. The pool was up to 300 credits, with most money on never or when Commander Vega finally says something so stupid that silence becomes physically impossible. What none of them realized, as they laughed and pointed and made their clever little jokes, was that Riley Morse wasn't just taking notes on their failures. She was cataloging their weaknesses, studying their blind spots, and quietly designing a future where their mockery would taste like the finest irony the universe had to offer. But hey, what did she know? After all, she was just the Mute. 3 weeks into the semester, Admiral Knox decided to grace the Academy with one of his legendary briefings. Knox was the kind of military leader who spoke in dramatic pauses and treated every PowerPoint slide like a revelation from the cosmic gods of warfare. "Cadets," he began, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd seen too many space battles and not enough sleep. "Today we're going to discuss something that has our best tactical analysts scratching their heads like confused chimps." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a timeline of humanity's greatest military victories over the past 5 years. The Battle of Kepler Station, the Siege of New Geneva, the liberation of the Titan mining colonies. Each victory marked with gleaming golden stars that practically screamed, "Look how awesome we are." Every single one of these victories, Admiral Knox continued, clearly building up to what he thought was going to be a mind-blowing revelation, has something in common. Something so bizarre that our statisticians initially thought it was a computer error. Commander Vega leaned forward in his seat like a dog who'd just heard the word treat. Lieutenant Torres adjusted his glasses, probably hoping this would finally make him look intelligent. When you take the first letter of each operational phase in these battle plans, Knox announced with the theatrical timing of a magician about to pull a rabbit from his hat, that they spell out the same thing every single time. The holographic display shifted, showing the tactical breakdown of the Battle of Kepler Station. Reconnaissance phase. Infiltration phase. Logistics coordination. Engagement initiation. You could practically hear the gears turning in everyone's heads as they tried to figure out where this was going. Then Knox highlighted the first letters, RILEY. The display continued with the next phases: movement coordination, orbital strike, resource allocation, systematic extraction, evacuation protocol, MORSE. The classroom erupted in laughter that could probably be heard on the Outer Rim colonies. Cadet Brooks nearly fell out of his chair. Cadet Williams was laughing so hard she started hiccuping. Even some of the instructors were chuckling like they'd just witnessed the universe's greatest practical joke. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Knox said with a grin that suggested he was enjoying this just as much as everyone else, "I present to you the Riley Morse coincidence theory." Commander Vega stood up, his chest puffed out like a rooster who'd just discovered his own shadow. "Well, Admiral, I think we can all agree that this is just the universe's way of reminding us that even cosmic coincidences have a sense of humor. Perhaps we should start naming our battle plans after our least vocal cadet as a good luck charm." The laughter reached new heights. Lieutenant Torres actually slapped his knee, which was probably the most animated anyone had ever seen him. Several cadets turned to look at Riley, expecting to see her shrinking in embarrassment, or finally breaking her silence to defend herself. Instead, Riley continued taking notes with the same methodical precision she always demonstrated. Her expression remained as neutral as Switzerland during a galactic war. She didn't blush, didn't fidget, didn't show any sign that she'd even heard her name being used as the punchline to what everyone seemed to think was the cosmos' greatest joke. The statistical probability of this happening by chance, Admiral Knox continued, still grinning, is roughly equivalent to finding a Zephyrian who appreciates human poetry. Our analysts have run the numbers 17 different ways, and they all come back with the same conclusion: impossible, but apparently true. Commander Vega was practically vibrating with glee. Perhaps Cadet Morse has been secretly influencing our tactical planning through some kind of mysterious psychic connection. Maybe her silence contains hidden wisdom that seeps into our battle strategies through osmosis. Even Lieutenant Torres managed to crack a joke, which was like watching a glacier attempt stand-up comedy. Maybe we should start consulting her notes for future operations. Who knows what other cosmic coincidences we might discover. The thing that really got everyone rolling was when Cadet Brooks suggested they should start a religion around the Riley Morse coincidence theory, complete with sacred silences and tactical genuflections. Through it all, Riley just kept writing in her notebook, occasionally glancing up at the holographic display with the mild interest of someone checking the weather forecast. She seemed completely unfazed by the fact that her name had apparently become synonymous with cosmic comedy gold. What nobody in that room understood, as they laughed themselves silly over their cosmic coincidence theory, was that they were absolutely right about one thing. Riley Morse was indeed influencing their tactical planning. They just had the method completely backwards. But hey, why ruin a perfectly good joke with something as inconvenient as the truth? Just when everyone thought the Riley Morse coincidence theory was going to be the highlight of their semester, but the Zephyrian Empire decided to crash the party with all the subtlety of a meteor hitting a china shop. The emergency klaxon started blaring at 0347 hours, jolting cadets from their sleep with the kind of urgency typically reserved for "the coffee machine is broken," or someone accidentally released the cleaning drones during inspection. Except this time, the holographic displays weren't showing routine maintenance schedules. They were showing the outer colonies being systematically obliterated by ships that looked like someone had crossed a squid with a particularly angry geometric theorem. Admiral Knox burst into the tactical center, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. His usually perfectly groomed appearance now resembled someone who'd been struck by lightning while wrestling a tornado. "Gentlemen," he announced, his voice carrying the kind of controlled panic that military leaders perfect when everything goes sideways. The Zephyrian Empire has decided that our outer colonies look better as radioactive debris fields. Commander Vega immediately snapped into action, or what he considered action, which mostly involved pointing at holographic displays and using words like flanking maneuvers and strategic repositioning with the confidence of someone who'd never actually had to dodge alien death rays. "We need to implement a classic pincer movement," he declared, manipulating the tactical display like he was conducting an orchestra of destruction. "Draw them into the asteroid field near Ceres, then hit them from both sides." Lieutenant Torres nodded vigorously, adding his own tactical brilliance to the mix. "Yes, and we should coordinate with the Mars defense grid for orbital bombardment support. Classic textbook maneuver." The problem with classic textbook maneuvers, as they were about to discover, was that the Zephyrians had apparently read the same textbooks. Every strategy that the Academy's finest minds threw at them got dismantled with the efficiency of a master chef filleting fish. The pincer movement? The Zephyrians split their forces and turned it into a death trap. The orbital bombardment? They had shields that made Earth's best weapons look like angry flashlights. The asteroid field ambush? They somehow used the asteroids as projectiles, turning humanity's defensive advantage into a cosmic game of deadly pinball. Colony after colony fell, while the tactical center devolved into barely controlled chaos. Officers shouted orders that contradicted other orders that had been superseded by previous orders that nobody remembered giving in the first place. Through all this magnificent display of military confusion, Riley sat in her usual corner spot, quietly working on something that looked suspiciously like homework. While experienced officers ran around like caffeinated squirrels trying to solve an unsolvable puzzle, she calmly filled out what appeared to be a single-page document. Commander Vega, his forehead now featuring stress wrinkles that could be seen from orbit, noticed Riley's apparent indifference to the galactic crisis unfolding around them. "Cadet Morse," he barked, his voice cracking slightly under the pressure, "I don't suppose you have any brilliant insights to share with the class? Perhaps the universe will deliver another cosmic coincidence to save us all." Riley looked up from her paper, met his eyes for exactly 2.3 seconds, then calmly placed her document in the mission submission tray and returned to her notes. The gesture was so casual, so completely unbothered, that it made Commander Vega's eye twitch in a way that suggested his sanity was hanging on by approximately one very frayed thread. "Outstanding," he muttered. "While the colonies burn, our silent genius submits what's probably her grocery list." The document, labeled with Riley's name and cadet number, immediately got buried under an avalanche of desperate battle plans submitted by every officer cadet, and probably several maintenance workers who figured they couldn't possibly do worse than the current leadership. Meanwhile, the tactical displays continued showing the same depressing pattern: human forces engage, human forces get demolished, human forces retreat to the next defensive position. Repeat until you run out of colonies or dignity, whichever comes first. Admiral Knox stared at the displays with the expression of someone watching their life's work get fed through a shredder in slow motion. "At this rate," he said quietly, "we'll be defending Earth itself within 72 hours. What nobody in that chaos-filled room realized was that buried in their submission pile, underneath dozens of increasingly desperate and increasingly ridiculous tactical proposals, sat a single page that would soon make every joke about cosmic coincidences seem like prophecy. But for now, it was just another piece of paper in a pile of what everyone assumed was military garbage. After all, what could the mute possibly know about winning an interstellar war? 71 hours and 43 minutes later, the situation had evolved from catastrophically bad to someone please check if the universe has a customer service department, because this product is clearly defective. The Zephyrians had systematically dismantled every conventional strategy humanity could throw at them. They'd turned military doctrine into expensive fireworks and made Earth's greatest tactical minds look like they were playing checkers while the aliens played four-dimensional chess with pieces made of pure mathematics and spite. In the communications center, Ensign Parker was having what could generously be called a complete mental breakdown. He'd been awake for 60 hours straight, surviving on caffeine, determination, and the increasingly desperate hope that someone, somewhere, had an idea that didn't end with humanity becoming a cautionary tale told by whatever species discovered Earth's radioactive remains. "There has to be something," he muttered, frantically digging through the mountain of submitted tactical proposals like an archaeologist searching for sanity in a dig site of despair. "Some plan, some strategy, some brilliant idea that doesn't involve surrender or expensive funeral arrangements." Most of the submissions read like they'd been written by committee. If the committee consisted of people who'd learned military tactics from action movies and fever dreams. Plan 247 suggested using the moon as a projectile, which showed creativity but questionable understanding of basic physics. Plan 183 recommended challenging the Zephyrian commander to single combat, but apparently under the assumption that alien invaders followed the same rules as medieval knights. Then Ensign Parker's sleep-deprived fingers stumbled across something unusual. A single page, neatly typed, labeled simply Tactical Proposal 001, C. Morse. "Hey, Admiral," Parker called out, his voice carrying the slight hysteria of someone who'd been staring at doomed battle plans for 3 straight days. "Want to hear something that'll either save us all or provide a good laugh before the universe ends?" Admiral Knox looked up from the tactical display where he'd been watching the Zephyrian fleet arrange itself into what appeared to be a smiley face formation. Because apparently even genocidal alien invaders had a sense of humor. "At this point, Parker, I'll take either." Read it. Parker cleared his throat and began reading Riley's proposal with the dramatic flair of someone delivering either salvation or its obituary. The first phase was labeled Reconnaissance through Misdirection. The second, Infiltration via abandoned mining routes. Then Logistics redistribution using civilian transports. As Parker continued reading, something strange happened in the tactical center. The frantic shouting gradually died down. Officers stopped running around in circles. Even Commander Vega's eye stopped twitching as he listened with growing amazement. "Environmental manipulation using local asteroid fields," Parker continued. "Systematic division of enemy forces. Strategic electromagnetic pulse deployment. Electronic warfare implementation using captured technology." The plan was elegant, brilliant, and completely insane in the way that only the most perfect strategies can be. It used the Zephyrians' own tactical superiority against them, turning their strength into vulnerability through a series of moves that were so counterintuitive they bordered on genius. Admiral Knox stood frozen, his mouth slightly open as the implications sank in. "Dear God," he whispered. "This could actually work." But Lieutenant Torres, still operating under the assumption that Riley Morse was about as tactically aware as a decorative houseplant, pointed out the obvious. "Sir, the first letters of each phase spell out Riley Morse again. This has to be another coincidence." For a moment, the room teetered on the edge between cosmic joke and desperate hope. Then Admiral Knox made the decision that would either save humanity or provide historians with a really interesting footnote about how Earth's final battle plan was chosen through letter-based pattern recognition. "I don't care if it spells out the entire works of Shakespeare," he declared. "Implemented immediately." What followed was the most perfectly executed military operation in human history, guided by a strategy so elegant that it seemed to anticipate the enemy's every move. The Zephyrian fleet, accustomed to crushing conventional tactics, found themselves outmaneuvered by an approach that treated their superior technology like a weakness to be exploited, rather than a strength to be feared. Within 6 hours, the tide of battle had turned so completely that the Zephyrian commander probably started questioning whether his navigation computer had accidentally led them to attack a species of tactical savants disguised as bumbling space monkeys. As victory reports flooded in, Admiral Knox stared at Riley's single-page proposal with the expression of someone who'd just discovered that their pet goldfish was actually a philosopher. "Who," he asked quietly, "is C. Morse?" The question hung in the air like a sword waiting to drop, and somewhere in the back of the tactical center, Riley continued taking notes with a slight smile that suggested she'd been waiting for someone to ask exactly that question. The victory celebration was in full swing when Riley Morse did something that would have been less shocking if she'd suddenly sprouted wings and started tap dancing on the ceiling. She stood up and cleared her throat. The sound was so unexpected that Cadet Brooks actually dropped his victory champagne, which splattered across the floor like the remains of everyone's assumptions about the mute. "Excuse me," Riley said, her voice carrying clearly across the celebration hall with the kind of calm authority that made everyone stop mid-conversation and turn to stare. "I believe someone asked who Morse is?" Commander Vega, who'd been in the middle of explaining to anyone who'd listen how his brilliant leadership had obviously contributed to their victory, froze with his mouth hanging open like a fish who'd just discovered oxygen. "The answer," Riley continued, stepping forward with the confidence of someone who'd been saving up words for exactly this moment, "is that Morse is the person who's been designing your successful battle strategies for the past 5 years." The silence that followed could have been bottled and sold as a cure for excessive noise. Even the background music seemed to have paused in shock. Admiral Knox was the first to find his voice, though it came out as more of a croak. "I'm sorry, what?" Riley smiled, and it was the kind of smile that suggested she'd been planning this reveal since approximately forever. "Every major military victory you've celebrated, every brilliant tactical maneuver you've studied, every strategy that coincidentally spelled out my name, I wrote them all." She gestured toward the holographic display showing their recent victory over the Zephyrians. "This latest plan? It's actually version 47 of a strategy I first designed 18 months ago. I've been refining it ever since, waiting for someone to create exactly the right crisis to test it properly." Lieutenant Torres made it sound like a deflating balloon. But you never speak in class. You just sit there taking notes like someone who's recording every tactical mistake for future reference." Riley interrupted. "Yes, that's exactly what I was doing. Did you know, Lieutenant Torres, that you've made the same fundamental error in fleet positioning 17 times this semester? I have detailed notes if you'd like to review them." Commander Vega had turned a shade of red typically associated with emergency lighting. "This is impossible. You're just a cadet. A silent, underperforming cadet who has been anonymously submitting tactical analyses to the Galactic Defense Council since I was 16, Riley finished. "The Battle of Kepler Station? That was my work, submitted through a false identity I created using Academy computer systems. "The Siege of New Geneva? Mine. "The liberation of the Titan mining colonies? Also mine." She pulled out a tablet and began scrolling through what appeared to be years of correspondence. "I've been operating under approximately 43 different aliases, submitting strategies through various channels including military contractor consultations, anonymous academic papers, and carefully timed leaks to officers who could take credit for implementing them." Admiral Knox sat down heavily, his legs apparently having decided they were no longer interested in supporting his weight. "Why?" he asked. "Why remain silent? Why let others take credit?" Riley's smile became almost predatory. "Because silence is the most powerful weapon in a tactician's arsenal. While you were all busy talking, posturing, and assuming you knew everything, I was learning. Every mistake you made in front of me became data. Every moment you spent explaining why something wouldn't work became insight into your limitations." She gestured toward Commander Vega, who looked like he was experiencing several existential crises simultaneously. "Commander, you once told the class that good tactics require bold communication and visible leadership. You were half right. Good tactics require understanding your enemy so completely that you can predict their next move before they make it. The best way to understand people is to let them think you're not worth noticing." Cadet Brooks, still processing the fact that the person he'd been mocking for months was apparently a tactical genius, managed to stammer out, "But why reveal yourself now?" Riley looked around the room, taking in all the shocked faces, the dropped drinks, and the general atmosphere of people having their reality restructured in real time. "Because," she said with the satisfaction of someone unveiling their masterpiece, "I got tired of watching inferior strategists take credit for my work. And because the Zephyrian invasion provided the perfect opportunity to demonstrate that maybe, just maybe, you should stop underestimating the quiet ones." She paused, letting that sink in before delivering the final blow. "Oh, and also because as of tomorrow, I'll officially outrank most of you." The promotion came through about an hour ago. The silence that followed was the sound of an entire room of people simultaneously realizing they'd been living in a universe that was far more ironic than they'd previously imagined. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Defense Academy had acquired its youngest admiral in recorded history, and the irony was so thick you could have used it to armor a battleship. Admiral Riley Morse sat behind her new desk in what used to be Commander Vega's office, reviewing strategic reports with the same methodical precision she'd once applied to her note-taking. The nameplate gleamed in the morning light, and the view from her window showed cadets drilling in the same courtyard where she'd once been dismissed as the mute. A soft knock at her door interrupted her reading. "Enter," she called, without looking up from her tactical assessments. Commander Vega stepped in, and the transformation was remarkable. The man who'd once strutted around the academy like he owned it now moved with the careful, nervous energy of someone walking through a minefield wearing tap shoes. His uniform was pressed to perfection, his posture was textbook military, and his expression suggested he was one minor mistake away from a complete mental breakdown. "Admiral Morse," he said, his voice carrying none of its former theatrical confidence, "I have the morning briefing reports you requested." Riley glanced up from her tablet with the mild interest of someone examining a moderately amusing insect. "Commander Vega," she acknowledged, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "Please sit down. We need to discuss your new assignments." Vega sat with the mechanical precision of a man who'd been practicing the movement to avoid any possibility of appearing casual or disrespectful. "Of course, Admiral. I'm ready for whatever duties you feel are appropriate." Riley leaned back in her chair, studying her former tormentor with the calculating gaze of someone who held all the cards and was still deciding which ones to play. "I've been reviewing your teaching methods, Commander, particularly your approach to student evaluation and tactical instruction." Vega's face went through several color changes that would have been impressive if they'd been intentional. "Admiral, if there's anything you feel needs improvement in my methods—" "Oh, there is," Riley interrupted, her voice carrying just enough warmth to be terrifying. "For instance, your tendency to use public humiliation as a motivational tool. Very creative, though I suspect the long-term effectiveness could be improved." She tapped her tablet, bringing up what appeared to be a detailed analysis of academy teaching methods. "I've been thinking about ways to help you better connect with students who might not fit the traditional mold. Students who prefer observation over participation. Students who might be thinking several moves ahead while you're still explaining the rules." "Ah, yes, Admiral. I would very much appreciate any guidance you could provide." Riley smiled, and it was the kind of smile that suggested she'd been looking forward to this conversation for months. "Excellent. Your first new assignment will be teaching a seminar on recognizing unorthodox tactical thinking. The course description I've written emphasizes the importance of looking beyond surface appearances and avoiding assumptions based on communication style." She handed him a course outline that he accepted like it might explode. "You'll notice that silent students receive special attention in this curriculum. The theory being that quiet observation often produces better strategic insights than loud participation." Vega scanned the document, his expression growing more pained with each paragraph. "This is very thorough, Admiral." "I've had time to think about it," Riley replied. 5 years of taking notes, actually. Amazing how much you can learn about teaching methods when you're sitting in the back of the classroom, watching everything that doesn't work. A chime from her communicator interrupted the conversation. Riley glanced at the display and her expression shifted to something approaching genuine enthusiasm. "Ah, perfect timing. The Zephyrian Empire has just sent a request for peace negotiations. It seems they're interested in hiring human tactical consultants for their own military academy." She looked up at Vega with renewed amusement. "Apparently, they're very impressed with our innovative approach to strategic thinking." Vega made a sound that might have been acknowledgement or might have been his soul leaving his body. Riley stood up, moving to the window that overlooked the academy courtyard. Below, a new group of cadets was running tactical simulations, and she could see several quiet students sitting in back corners, taking notes while their louder classmates commanded attention. "You know what the real beauty of this situation is, Commander?" she asked, not turning away from the window. "No, Admiral. What's that? Riley's reflection in the glass showed a smile that contained approximately 5 years' worth of accumulated satisfaction. Every joke you made about the Riley Morse coincidence theory was completely accurate. My name really was appearing in every successful strategy. The cosmic coincidence wasn't that it was happening. She turned back to face him, her expression carrying the serene confidence of someone who'd just won a game that her opponents didn't even know they were playing. The cosmic coincidence was that it took you this long to figure out why. Outside her window, the Academy continued its daily routine of training the next generation of military leaders. But now, scattered throughout those classrooms, instructors were learning to pay attention to the quiet ones, the note-takers, the students who preferred watching to talking. After all, you never know when the mute might actually be the mastermind. And in a universe full of cosmic coincidences, the biggest coincidence of all might just be assuming that silence means absence of thought, rather than presence of a mind that's been waiting for exactly the right moment to speak.